Have you ever felt a powerful stir in your chest that told you to step forward only to discover that your feet would not budge? Perhaps you convinced yourself to wait just a little longer until conditions improved. Risk-taking often ignites vivid images of people skydiving or making huge financial gambles. But in daily life, taking a risk could be as simple as starting a conversation with someone new, pursuing a dream job, or picking up a bold new hobby. These brave steps might sound minor, but your willingness to do something different can spark a profound internal shift. The decision to leave your comfort zone does not typically unfold in a vacuum. It emerges from a desire for a more fulfilling existence, whether you yearn for new connections, better health, a flourishing career, or deeper peace of mind. When you take that leap, even a small one, you initiate a domino effect that can lead to unexpected discoveries about who you are and what you can accomplish. Human beings thrive on novelty and the excitement of growth. Our brains light up when we challenge ourselves, learn new skills, or adapt to unfamiliar environments. Risk-taking breaks stagnant patterns. It paves the way for extraordinary transformations that might remain invisible while we cling to what feels safe. People often imagine risk as a gamble with everything on the line. Yet many leaps come in smaller packages that gradually expand our personal boundaries. Over time, small acts of courage coalesce into a significant, life-altering change. While fear and uncertainty often hinder us, they also offer a clue about what matters most to us. If we become anxious at the thought of trying something new, it probably reflects an inner desire to grow. Acknowledging and then moving through that fear lays the groundwork for healthier self-esteem and a more exciting future. Risk-taking does not mean throwing caution to the wind and discarding rational decision-making. You can balance calculated moves with a willingness to push beyond your comfort zone. Think about an athlete who steadily increases training intensity, or a student who signs up for a challenging course. Each step feels slightly nerve-wracking, but it fosters personal evolution. By navigating the healthy tension between safety and challenge, you uncover new layers of resilience, purpose, and skill. You also equip yourself to cope with whatever life throws your way. In the words of motivational speaker Tony Robbins, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. His statement underscores a straightforward reality. Refusing to take even the smallest chance consigns you to a life of familiar routines and missed opportunities. When you remain on the same path day after day, life feels predictable. Repetition can be soothing. You wake up, you do the same tasks, and you expect roughly the same outcomes. Many people cling to that sense of stability because it guards against unpleasant surprises. After all, you already know the terrain. From a survival perspective, human beings evolved to minimize threats wherever possible. Our prehistoric ancestors needed to conserve energy and avoid life-threatening risks. In that environment, trying something untested could result in dire consequences. Although times have changed and most of us no longer face saber-toothed tigers, our ancient wiring sometimes gets in the way of personal expansion. We crave the familiarity of routines and resist the anxiety that might come from uncertain experiences. Sometimes we mistake that consistent schedule for genuine fulfillment. You may sense an unsettling feeling that you're destined for more. Yet you stay put because taking a leap feels like it could disrupt the calm you've worked so hard to achieve. This dynamic explains why so many folks remain in relationships, jobs, or living situations that fail to nourish their true needs. We cling to habits that promise safety, even when they stifle our aspirations. Comfort tends to lull us into a false sense of security. We might never fully realize the cost of staying in place until frustration, dissatisfaction, or a restless longing for something more creeps in. When the status quo persists, opportunities slip by. Life changes outside our control can leave us feeling stuck, hesitant, or disheartened. We might sense our personal growth is on pause. Over time, an unchanging lifestyle can chip away at mental well-being. Stagnation often fosters negative emotions, like hopelessness or low self-worth, especially when you believe your life lacks direction. From a psychological standpoint, comfort zones function as both protective walls and restrictive barriers. You might enter them initially to heal or regroup, but spending too much time behind those walls can dampen your spirit. People usually feel a spark of excitement whenever they finally step into an endeavor that feels risky, yet aligned with their deepest desires, like traveling alone to a new country or applying for a leadership role at work. The longer you remain shielded from risk, the harder it can be to muster the courage to break through. Each unfulfilled dream or missed opportunity stacks onto the pile of regrets. Before you know it, you feel stuck. You lose touch with your sense of purpose. While comfortable routines can provide temporary relief from day-to-day stress, they often come with a higher price in the long run. Fear resides at the heart of our hesitation to venture into unexplored territory. It can appear as a racing heartbeat, a sudden tightening of the stomach, or a whirlwind of anxious thoughts. You might obsess over the worst-case scenarios. What if it all goes wrong? What if I fail miserably? Or what if people judge me? These worries can paralyze you before you take even one step. So often, the mind confuses discomfort with danger and labels potential failure as catastrophic rather than a natural part of growth. Yet in clinical psychology, especially in approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, fear is not the villain. It is a signal that encourages you to evaluate whether the threat is real. It asks you to weigh the pros and cons of moving forward or staying put. Sometimes we inflate our fears, turning them into mental monsters that overshadow any potential benefits. This happens because our minds evolved to highlight possible risks more vividly than potential rewards. If you remain attuned to perceived threats, you increase your odds of survival, at least from an evolutionary standpoint. In modern society, however, this heightened focus can prevent you from pursuing meaningful changes or testing innovative ideas. Consider how we handle job interviews. Many people avoid applying for better positions because they dread rejection. Yet surviving that sting of rejection can be less damaging to your happiness than the ongoing frustration of a stagnant role. Keeping your eyes on the bigger picture helps you see that short-term anxiety is not always a reliable indicator of danger. Our bodies are primed to react quickly when we sense a threat. The fight-or-flight mechanism surges into action, releasing adrenaline and cortisol to help us deal with immediate danger. These hormones increase heart rate and prepare muscles to move. A job interview or the thought of relocating to a new city rarely presents a real threat. Yet the reaction can feel similar if your brain perceives unfamiliar territory as perilous. You might find yourself sweating, trembling, or battling an upset stomach. From an evolutionary lens, these responses prepare you to escape a predator, but in everyday life, they can leave you second-guessing each new opportunity. The key lies in recognizing when the fight or flight response is disproportionate to the challenge at hand. You can't eliminate adrenaline altogether, but you can practice healthy coping strategies such as deep breathing, mindfulness, or visualization to transform that surge of energy into enthusiasm instead of dread. When you regulate these natural stress responses, you build resilience. you also gain the clarity to weigh real versus imagined dangers. Ultimately, your fear may persist, but it no longer drives your decisions. Instead, you learn how to carry fear alongside your ambition without letting it steer the ship. Anxiety frequently draws us into endless loops of overthinking. We evaluate every scenario, attempt to predict every outcome, and measure our projected abilities against near impossible standards. Too much anticipatory fear undermines the boldness we need to take even modest steps forward. Anxiety magnifies doubt and whispers that we don't have what it takes. Sometimes it sounds like your own voice telling you 1,000 reasons not to try. Yet psychology tells us that exposure, placing ourselves gently in the situations we fear, can gradually reduce the intensity of our anxious responses. Rather than avoiding fear, we learn to approach it in manageable increments. For instance, a person who dreads public speaking may start by talking in a small group, then proceed to a slightly bigger audience. Each phase feels like a risk. Each success, however small, breaks the mental pattern that says, "You can't do this." Instead, the mind collects evidence that you can do more than you originally believed. Even if you stumble in your first attempts, you discover that failure does not define your worth. This experience-based reframing chips away at deep-rooted anxiety. You create a mental blueprint that proves you are capable of facing challenges head-on, especially when you take incremental, carefully chosen risks along the way. Risk-taking doesn't require impulsive leaps into the unknown. Consider it a series of nudges outside your comfort zone. You test your limits, gather new insights, and then adapt. Repeated small shifts can transform you in ways you never imagined. Personal growth happens in stages. You might not notice dramatic changes overnight, but over weeks or months, you build momentum and realize your skill set is expanding. The path may feel unpredictable, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but each forward step matters. From a therapeutic perspective, stepping beyond your comfort zone can trigger powerful breakthroughs. People often see transformations in their relationships or careers once they muster the courage to speak up, set boundaries, or undertake new responsibilities. For instance, telling a partner you want to try couples counseling can be a scary move. You risk conflict or rejection. Yet you also open the possibility of a healthier relationship dynamic. Ultimately, the act of taking that chance affirms your commitment to growth and signals your readiness to leave behind a stale status quo. Many psychological theories, including humanistic and existential approaches, emphasize that living life fully involves risk, choice, and accountability. You cannot fully realize your personal potential without confronting the possibility of failure or the discomfort of making changes. Confidence doesn't simply materialize, it grows when you prove to yourself that you can navigate challenges. You decide to try something mildly uncomfortable, such as attending a weekend workshop by yourself. You might worry about feeling awkward or out of place. Then, as you socialize and learn, you gather evidence that you can handle uncertainty. That success, no matter how modest, boosts self-assurance. Next time, you consider a bigger challenge. Maybe you speak up during a team meeting at work or volunteer to lead a small project. Each risk you take places an extra stone on the foundation of self-confidence, making it easier to face future uncertainties. This incremental approach differs from the narrative of go big or go home. True, some people benefit from dramatic changes, quitting a day job to launch a startup or traveling solo across multiple continents. But those decisions don't start in a vacuum. They often emerge after the person has built enough self-trust through a series of smaller, less intimidating actions. This principle underlies many forms of psychotherapy that use gradual exposure to tackle phobias. If you can break a big risk into smaller, digestible steps, you reduce the emotional barriers and amplify the positive feedback you gain from each success. Our surroundings strongly influence our habits, behaviors, and mindsets. Sometimes the best way to catalyze change is to shift where you live, where you work, or the social circles you frequent. This doesn't mean you have to uproot your entire life, but even subtle modifications can yield powerful results. Maybe you rearrange your workspace to enhance productivity, or you spend time in a new cafe that sparks creativity. Maybe you seek out a supportive community group that aligns with your values. Changing your environment can feel risky because it interrupts old routines. Yet it also invites fresh perspectives and motivation. You immerse yourself in different stimuli, which can inspire new problem-solving tactics or fresh personal insights. Moving to a new home, city, or even country can accelerate this effect. You encounter a novel culture or environment that forces you to adapt and learn. While this move can feel daunting, it often propels internal growth. You shed outdated patterns because they no longer fit your current reality. This radical shift of scenery can help you break away from the beliefs and habits that kept you confined to your comfort zone. People who study social psychology often stress the power of context in shaping our identities. By nudging ourselves into environments that encourage self-discovery, we unlock new dimensions of our potential. You step away from old labels and explore what else might be possible. Mindset remains at the core of successful change. You might have heard the distinction between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck. A fixed mindset assumes your abilities or traits are set in stone. A growth mindset, in contrast, believes that you can always learn, adapt, and improve. The difference is subtle, yet profoundly influential. When you shift toward a growth mindset, you begin to see failures as steps in your learning journey instead of final verdicts on your potential. This view encourages you to view each new challenge as a teacher rather than a threat to your ego or self-esteem. Adjusting your mindset can also include cultivating self-compassion. When you try something new and don't meet your own expectations, you treat yourself kindly. Instead of blaming your lack of natural talent or intelligence, you interpret setbacks as evidence of your bravery in attempting something challenging. You glean lessons that refine your approach next time. You also reduce the mental wear and tear that comes from harsh self-criticism. This psychological flexibility, the capacity to adapt your thinking, behavior, and emotional responses, fuels continuous growth. As Brené Brown writes in Daring Greatly, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Taking a risk often means exposing parts of yourself that you'd rather keep hidden. Yet this type of vulnerability is precisely what opens doors to deeper connections, sharper insights, and renewed purpose. Self-talk exerts incredible power over how you perceive and react to challenges. You might catch your inner voice saying things like, "I'm not cut out for this," or "People will laugh if I mess up." These statements trap you in negative imagery, where all you can see is an embarrassing meltdown or an outcome that confirms your worst fears. Reframing your mindset involves flipping that script to more empowering questions. Instead of dwelling on, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams?" Or, "What if this leads to personal breakthroughs?" This linguistic pivot shifts your focus to potential gains rather than potential losses. This strategy isn't about ignoring risks or sugarcoating reality. It's about guiding your brain to consider an alternative perspective, one that fosters hope and opportunity rather than limiting beliefs. Even if the outcome isn't total victory, you can still discover new insights, meet helpful people, or develop abilities that serve you well in future endeavors. When you practice looking at multiple possibilities, you train yourself to remain open-minded and creative. You might fail at times, but you also stand a better chance of stumbling upon unexpected successes. This mental flip reduces the power of fear to keep you idle. It gives you agency over your next move. Your life story evolves every moment, shaped by the choices you make and the chances you take. That first step beyond your comfort zone can feel like standing on a cliff's edge with the wind howling in your ears. Yet remember, risk-taking need not be dramatic or reckless. Even small acts of courage, asking for feedback from a mentor, trying a new class at the gym, or voicing your true feelings in a difficult conversation, can alter the trajectory of your life in profound ways. You glean fresh insights about who you are and what you're capable of accomplishing. Risk invites growth. It tests your adaptability, resilience, and willingness to see beyond the everyday. It also challenges your default perspective, revealing uncharted avenues for personal development, social connections, and career milestones. Consider that curiosity you felt as a child when the world brimmed with excitement and possibilities. You looked at everything with open eyes and asked, why not, or what's next? That childlike wonder still resides within you, waiting for permission to explore. Facing the unknown requires equal parts vulnerability and determination. You might face missteps, disappointment, or temporary setbacks, but you also gain wisdom, courage, and life-changing breakthroughs. In time, what once felt risky becomes your new normal. Suddenly, bigger dreams seem within reach. You realize you possess the power to steer your life in a direction that resonates with your goals and passions, no matter how unconventional or challenging they appear. That stirring in your chest, the one that tells you to take a chance, represents more than just a fleeting impulse. It's a call to evolve, to expand, and to become the person you've always wanted to be. You don't need to wait for a special invitation or the perfect moment. Start by tackling small uncertainties in your daily routine. Then, gradually work your way toward bigger leaps of faith. Recognize that each chance you take moves you toward self-discovery and transformation. You put your unique talents, dreams, and ambitions on the stage of possibility. Change, after all, does not simply happen to us. We can choose it. We can invite it by saying yes to risk. When you decide to step forward, no matter how cautiously, you shift your life story from one of unrealized potential to one of energetic exploration.